Tonight on Reporting Scotland, concerns about safety at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary's maternity units. Mothers and newborn babies came to harm because of staffing shortages and a toxic culture at the unit, according to a whistleblowing investigation seen by BBC News. NHS Lothian says an improvement plan has already been put in place as a result of the report. Also on tonight's programme, a woman who stole from a charity set up in memory of her best friend's daughter has been given 3 months to repay the money. Lindsay McCallum took thousands of pounds from 2 charities over the course of a decade. She's currently serving 3 years in jail.
I'm just delighted for both charities, and I'm just so delighted that the justice system took the right decision.
There's been an 11% increase in domestic abuse crimes over the past year, according to the latest figures in a Police Scotland report. The First Minister says he would consider a ban on social media for under-16s, and he's already discussed the issue with UK government ministers.
Coming up in tonight's sport, former Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou is back in Glasgow as Rangers prepare to host his Tottenham Hotspur side in the Europa League.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. Mothers and newborn babies came to harm because of staffing shortages and a toxic culture at Edinburgh's maternity triage unit. That's according to a whistleblowing report seen by BBC Scotland News. NHS Lothian says an improvement plan has already been put in place as a result of the report. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers has the story.
This NHS Lothian promotional video shows how to access maternity services at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, providing reassurance for pregnant women.
Wherever you choose to have your baby, you can expect the same high-quality standard of care and patient-centred care.
But in February this year, a whistleblower raised concerns about patient care in the triage unit. The conclusions of the investigation were clear. There is no dispute. There have been safety concerns, near misses and actual adverse outcomes for women and babies. Staff who were interviewed described a toxic workplace culture, with witnesses reporting feeling undervalued and disrespected. The report says there were regular staffing shortfalls in the department, despite managers believing it was adequate, and there were examples of overcrowding leading to delays in treatment. One night shift, there were 10 women waiting to be triaged and 17 in the department, 3 times the usual capacity.
The whistleblowing report was completed in the summer, but it was shortly after that staff got in touch with me to say that they were still afraid that safe care could not be delivered to patients. They raised a number of concerns, including the recent death of a mother shortly after childbirth.
In a statement, NHS Lothian extended their condolences to the family. They say a detailed review is underway to give them much needed answers and establish what happened. And the Health Board is continuing to implement actions in relation to the whistleblowing concerns.
We have to have very safe maternity services in Scotland, and this tragic event, it isn't one that happens often, and I would like to assure mums-to-be and their families that we are taking this very seriously. And it needs to be, and it is safe in Scotland for babies to be born and mothers to get the right support.
Across Scotland, all maternity units will soon be facing unannounced inspections by the NHS safety watchdog. Lisa Summers, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
A woman who stole nearly £86,000 from a charity set up in memory of her best friend's daughter has been given 3 months to repay the money. Lindsay McCallum, who was jailed in October, defrauded the charity Rainbow Valley over the course of a decade after launching it with former friend Angela McVicker. McVicker told BBC Scotland News she was delighted the justice system took the right decision. Suzanne Allen was at Falkirk Sheriff Court this morning.
Angela McVicker and Lindsay McCallum had been best friends for nearly 30 years. They spoke every day on the phone at 6 a.m. But back in October, Lindsay was jailed for stealing nearly £86,000 from the charity Rainbow Valley that they set up together. Today, Angela was in court to see Sheriff Labaki order Lindsay McCallum to pay the money back.
I'm just relieved for the charity, both charities involved in this. We put our trust in the justice system, and Sheriff Labaki delivered, exactly what made sense, that the money should come back to the charities. The charity will survive, the charity will thrive now that we're getting this back. However, the hurt to her family and mine, it'll be long lasting, it'll be forever lasting. That'll take a bit more to get over.
They met in 1996 through Angela's daughter Joanna, who had leukaemia and worked with stem cell charity, the Anthony Nolan Trust, where Lindsay was a fundraiser.
It's a lovely photograph.
Joanna, seen here in a BBC documentary, was a campaigner signing up celebrities like Robbie Williams to the donor register. After Joanna died, Angela and Lindsay set up Rainbow Valley to help people going through cancer in her memory. Lindsay ran it, Angela was the figurehead. After Lindsay left in 2022, the fraud was discovered. McCallum had forged signatures of charity staff and rerouted cash from fundraising accounts between 2011 and 2021. It was spent on clothes, candles and expensive gifts. Not only had she stolen from Rainbow Valley, but £9,500 was also taken from her previous employer, the Anthony Nolan Trust. Lindsay has already paid back £25,000, so still owes £60,000 to Rainbow Valley. Money that will go a long way.
It'll be absolutely wonderful. We are a small charity, so that kind of £60,000 that we're still waiting and coming back will go a long way to help bring the waiting list of 200 people down, and we'll be able to run more courses to help people who are affected by cancer, which was Joanna's dream.
Lindsay McCallum has until the 5th of March next year to pay up. For Angela McVicker, this is not a day of celebration. It is a day that justice was delivered. What Angela and her family want to focus on now is her charity Rainbow Valley and the people they can help in the future. Suzanne Allen, reporting Scotland, Falkirk.
Domestic abuse crimes have increased over the past year as the police launch a new campaign to tackle the problem. The latest figures from Police Scotland show that crimes reported to it increased by 11% between April and September this year. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan has the story.
The conviction of Stuart Hogg received national publicity because of his fame as a sports star, but his offence, 5 years of abusive behaviour towards his estranged wife, was far from unusual. Almost a third of the cases in our sheriff courts involved domestic abuse. The police believe the 11% rise recorded in 6 months this year is down to increased reporting by victims of coercive control and stalking.
We know that's 11.1% of a figure that's massively underreported. But what we want is to talk to those men predominantly that are between the ages of 18 and 35 and say, look, if you start to see the behaviours, if you're starting to see yourself get angry, if you're starting to see yourself use coercive and controlling language and behaviours, there's support out there for you.
Who's more romantic?
This advert will run on social media.
Who's the better cook?
Encouraging men to call Respect.
Who controls the money?
A charity which tries to help perpetrators.
Who needs permission before they go on a night out?
Some of them are very, very dangerous and very embedded with very risky behaviours, and some of them kill. And some of them are not very, very dangerous. Some of them are just at the start, and some of them can be shown a different path, if you like.
Prosecutors want more victims to come forward. They say recent legislation means Scotland is better placed than ever before to deal with domestic abuse.
As prosecutors, we are so committed to the prosecution of domestic abuse and to taking it seriously and to listening to victims. I believe that with the legislation we have in Scotland, we really are global leaders.
But there are challenges. In 2021, Holyrood passed a law to create new protections for victims of domestic abuse. And 3 years on, it's still not been implemented.
The important key difference with domestic abuse protection orders was going to be that they could compel somebody to do something rather than stop them from doing something, like non-harassment orders. So we're really disappointed that that hasn't been enacted yet.
What would I say to those women who have been expecting this to be implemented soon? I would say I'm sorry that it hasn't been, and ideally it should have been, but we are where we are now. and the commitment is, and the task for us is to try and make sure it's put into statute effect as quickly as possible.
Who has outbursts that can sometimes get out of hand?
In the meantime, Police Scotland's social media campaign will run until January. David Cowan reporting Scotland.
Now, it is a very live debate at the moment. Should we limit youngsters' use of social media? Well, the First Minister, John Swinney, says he would consider a ban for under-16s and says he's discussed it with UK government ministers. The issue has been in the news recently after Australia announced a ban for under-16s. Well, let's speak now to our news correspondent, Jamie McIver. Jamie, so what is the Scottish Government looking at then?
Well, Laura, Mr Swinney certainly seems sympathetic to some of the arguments in favour of a ban, and that recent ban in Australia has prompted calls for similar action here. Now, here it's the UK government that's in charge of the online safety rules, and it says a ban could be on the cards. But there's also the question of whether the Scottish government could take some action too, if necessary. Well, earlier on today, I spoke to the First Minister, John Swinney, and here's what he told me.
We've engaged in dialogue on this question with the United Kingdom government, and of course the Australian government has taken action in this respect. So there are issues to be addressed because we must at all times be vigilant about protecting the safety of children and young people, and we must be conscious of some of the damaging effects there can be from social media activity.
As you said, though, online safety is a reserved issue. Could the Scottish Government act alone?
I think there's an awful lot to explore here. There may be ways the Scottish Government can use some of its powers to try to give more protection to under-16s, or it could ask for the powers to ban youngsters from social media here if the UK Government were to decide not to act. Suppose in many ways, Laura, this is rather like the debate on mobile phones in schools and whether or not they should be completely banned. Earlier on today, I spoke to one parent who favours a widespread ban on smartphones in Scottish schools, and she also has her worries about what social media and some websites may be doing to some children, and especially to their mental health and well-being.
I believe that our children's brains, they're not able to process the need to switch off, to go away from the phone. The fear of missing out is huge, which as adults we feel. But as a child, how are they supposed to be able to understand, constant doom scrolling, what that does to them, the anxiety, the mental health crisis that we're facing, the fact that children can no longer concentrate for as long as they used to be able to.
And here's another parallel with the debate on mobile phones and children. Should there be an outright ban on under-16s using social media, or do you simply need to try to help them learn to use social media positively and protect them from specific content that may be harmful?
Lots of questions. Certainly an ongoing debate, as we said. Thank you very much, Jamie. To some of the day's other stories now. The body has been found in the search for a woman reported missing after becoming stuck in mud on the Solway estuary. Police Scotland said that although formal identification has still to take place, the family of Shona Campbell had been informed. The 74-year-old had been staying in a caravan park near Annan. She phoned 999 when she got stuck in a mud flat during a walk on Monday evening. Police Scotland said the death was being treated as unexplained but not suspicious. Former St Mirren defender Sean Rooney has appeared at Glasgow Sheriff Court charged with assaulting a woman in a chip shop. The 28-year-old allegedly attacked Sophia Bruce at Blue Lagoon in the city centre on the 19th of September. He faces a separate allegation of behaving in a threatening or abusive manner. He pled not guilty to the two charges and a trial was set for April next year. The first stage of the fatal accident inquiry into the Stonehaven train derailment in which 3 men died is to be held next month at Aberdeen Sheriff Court. Driver Brett McCulloch, conductor Donald Dinny and passenger Christopher Stookbury died when the Aberdeen to Glasgow service derailed at Carmont after hitting a landslide following heavy rain in 2020. Network Rail was fined £6.7 million last year after admitting a series of failings which led to the deaths. Details have been revealed of a contingency plan to create extra bed space for NHS Grampian patients after capacity issues last month saw ambulances diverted to hospitals in Dundee and Inverness. The Health Board has identified 4 units in locations which can be brought into use when needed. A report says they'll need to be staffed by agency nurses. And a consultation is underway on proposals to designate Scotland's largest jail as a Category A listed building. Historic Environment Scotland say it would cover the original Barlinnie buildings, which were constructed between 1880 and 1908. Barlinnie is due to be replaced by a new prison, HMP Glasgow, on the site of the former Provan Gasworks, but no date has been set for its closure. Now, rail passengers on the West Coast Main Line face the prospect of major disruption around Christmas because of strike action by train managers. The RMT union has announced 3 strike dates over the festive period. The rail operator Avanti West Coast says that means there will be fewer trains running, and those that are will be very busy. Well, our transport correspondent David Henderson is at Central Station in Glasgow for us tonight. What more do we know then, David?
Well, Laura, this strike action is the latest stage of an escalating dispute between bosses and the workers who operate on the trains that run from here up and down to London. The row involves more than 400 train managers. That's the name given to people who handle the tickets and security on the trains. And bluntly, the dispute is about overtime pay. They want more of it, and their union has been demanding extra pay and an agreement with management to deliver that. Now, the rail operator Avanti West Coast have made what they call a very reasonable pay offer to staff, but it seems that's not enough, because now we have strike action pending. The RMT have announced 3 strike dates, 2 of them immediately before Christmas on the 22nd and 23rd of December, and another immediately afterwards on the 29th. And the rail operators say the result of that will be disruption to services on those days, with fewer services, fewer trains running, and knock-on disruption on the days round about, with passengers having to find a seat on those other trains if they still want to travel. Now, the RMT union is defending this strike action and insists it's not out to ruin its passengers' Christmas.
No, we're the fantastic men and women who keep the railways moving, and they deserve a fair deal for doing that. So we're not the Grinch. We enjoy Christmas as much as anyone else, but our members do a fantastic job, and they need to be rewarded fairly and properly for that, and that's all this is about.
David, the RMT are also protesting about cuts to opening hours at ScotRail ticket offices.
Yes, indeed. They took their campaign to Holyrood today. They say cutting the hours at ticket offices across ScotRail services, across the ScotRail network, will put passengers at risk. They say they will make the network a more dangerous place, especially after dark. And they warn that more than 100 ticket offices across Scotland face the prospect of reduced hours. They want that reversed, and they are not ruling out the prospect of strike action to achieve that goal. Now, in response, ScotRail have told us that they are bringing in these changes because of falling sales of paper tickets. The vast majority of us, they say, now buy our tickets for trains online, not in a paper form. And so opening hours, they say, have to change to deliver a better service, but they say no jobs will be lost and no ticket offices will close either. Laura.
OK, David at Central Station, thank you. OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Lewis and the return of a familiar face to Glasgow.
Absolutely, Laura. Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one to watch how it all pans out. But yes, European football giving a lot of gifts at the minute. It's been very entertaining.
Sure is.
Thanks very much, Laura. Hello there. Yes, well, Rangers manager Philippe Clement wants his players to make it a night they'll remember for the rest of their lives when they face Tottenham Hotspur in the Europa League tomorrow. Rangers and Spurs are 8th and 9th respectively in the 36-team table at the moment, both on 10 points, with 2 more league phase games to go after tomorrow's meeting. Clement believes the gulf between the two clubs in terms of financial resources can be nullified with the right sort of performance on the pitch.
To have it as a player, as a manager, several nights of those that the gap was amazing big. And those are also the best nights. If you then perform and you get the results, those are also the nights that you remember all of your life. Those are also the moments that as a player you remember your teammates really well. The moments of success, the moment of doing something special. So in that way, I hope the players can give themselves and as a team a special night tomorrow.
Well, the sides come into this match in contrasting form. There was a lot of pressure on Clermont and Rangers a few weeks ago, but they're undefeated in 8 games with 5 wins and 3 draws. And this is their last 5 results, among them thumping wins against Kilmarnock and Nice. More of a struggle for Spurs, though. A brilliant win at Manchester City, then 2 draws and 2 defeats. And some supporters have lost patience with Ange Postecoglou. The Australian steered his side to 5th in his first season, and although they're doing well in the Europa League, an inconsistent spell in the Premier League means they currently lie 11th in the table. Postecoglou will be desperate to get his team back on track on his return to Glasgow, where he had such an impact on one half of the city during his successful spell at Celtic. He's at Ibrox ahead of tomorrow's tie, where he's been holding his pre-match media conference.
I think you know what kind of reception I'll get. I loved it. It was different experiences, mixed. I think the first one we were here, we lost, and then next one when we only had sort of 500 or 600 in the building, we won, and that was pretty special. But it's I've enjoyed all the games against Rangers, all the derbies. They're big games here in Scotland, obviously, and usually very significant games. And I enjoyed them all. I enjoy the atmosphere, and like I said, European nights here. It's going to be something that you want to be a part of, and hopefully overcome.
Hearts are also in European action tomorrow. They're in Denmark to take on Copenhagen in a match that head coach Neil Critchley says will be the Tynecastle club's most challenging in the Conference League. Frankie Kent is back in contention for a place in the team after injury, and Critchley hopes Saturday's victory over Dundee will prove to be a turning point for Hearts in what has been a poor season so far. We had been hoping to hear from Hearts' boss in Copenhagen, but his media interviews are running a bit later than scheduled, so apologies. Now, after a goalless draw with Dinamo Zagreb, Celtic turned their attention from the Champions League to the League Cup final, and captain Callum McGregor says the players know they're expected to win this weekend when they face rivals Rangers at Hampden. McGregor has been in fine form this season and is the joint top scorer in the league. While the midfielder admits there's always pressure to win at Celtic, he's relishing the opportunity to lift his 23rd piece of silverware with the club.
Every tournament that we play in, we want to win it, we want to do the best that we can, and obviously this is the first one that's up for grabs. So our approach doesn't change, maybe a little bit more because we didn't win it last year, but the expectation is to win, and the players know that, so we have to go to the game, recover well now, and when we go to the game we have to give everything we can to make sure it's a positive afternoon, because everyone you have to win, you have to be successful, so that gives you the pressure, keeps you sharp between the ears, so it doesn't matter how many you've won, the next one is the most important, and that's the way the group will treat it.
Now, the Scottish FA have endorsed FIFA's decision to award the 2034 World Cup to Saudi Arabia and the preceding tournament to Spain, Portugal and Morocco. The bids for both World Cups were unopposed, and FIFA made the announcement to their 211 member associations at their annual Congress. The decision to award Saudi one of the world's biggest sporting events has drawn criticism from human rights campaigners and environmentalists. FIFA President Gianni Infantino says football has the power to unite the world. Rugby now, and Scotland winger Duhan van der Merwe has signed a new 2-year contract with Edinburgh, committing himself to the Murrayfield club until 2027. The 29-year-old is a pivotal player for both club and country and recently became Scotland's record try scorer. He toured with the British and Irish Lions in 2021 and is widely tipped to be selected again for the trip to Australia next year. And before I go, Laura, we can cut across to Ibrox now actually to get a glimpse of the Tottenham training, which is on the go right now. Live pictures here, and we will be live at the stadium tomorrow ahead of what is going to be a very fascinating game. The players going through their paces. Ange Postecoglou not without his injury worries though, so I'm sure it'll be a fascinating game, and it'll be intriguing to see if Rangers can get that step closer to making the playoff round to get through from this league phase. But yes, all shaping up to be interesting at Ibrox tomorrow.
Indeed, interesting and cold by the looks of things.
That's okay. I'll be wrapped up for tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Lewis. Okay, now let's go over to Laura McKeever to find out what's happening on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock.
Tonight we'll speak to a midwife turned author about the safety of mothers and babies in maternity units. Sarah Sharif's father and stepmother have been found guilty of the murder of the 10-year-old last year. We'll have more on that too. And we'll get reaction as Saudi Arabia is named host of the 2034 Football World Cup. All of that and more at 9.
And just before we go to the weather, a tale about a horse on the run. This is 10-year-old Rufio, who was racing in Musselburgh in East Lothian on Monday before he unseated his rider and was then spotted galloping down the road in Prestonpans, around 2 miles away. He was later halted by a member of the public and returned to his stables unharmed. Clearly wanting a bit of a wander. All's well that ends well, though, thankfully, Gillian. This is beautiful, wow.
Isn't it? Yes, a cracking picture from the Campsies, Laura, of that layer of mist, fog and low cloud that once again has been affecting parts of central Scotland. More of that to come tonight, and it's staying cold. Good evening to you. Even where you didn't have the mist and fog today, it was cold despite some crisp spells of sunshine. All down to high pressure, which is still anchored across us, keeping us settled, allowing those temperatures to fall away, especially by night. You can see we have a weak warm front to the north. That's been bringing milder conditions to the Northern Isles. Shetland was the warmest place in the UK today at 10 Celsius, and still some patchy rain tonight for Shetland out of that warm front. Otherwise, though, it's dry again. We'll see some mist and freezing fog, especially for the central belt and the south, the odd patch elsewhere, and a widespread frost inland once again. We could see -5, -6 Celsius in places, and a risk of ice as we start the day tomorrow. That mist and fog could be slow to clear in places. Again, it's predominantly dry, and there will be some spells of wintry sunshine. Mixed fortunes in terms of sunshine. This is the picture around about 3 o'clock, and you can see still stubborn cloud for Shetland. Bit of brightness coming through for Orkney. Again, it's milder over the Northern Isles. Across the mainland, it's chilly, just 2 to 5 Celsius. There'll be some spells of wintry sunshine, but also some quite large areas of cloud, especially for southern Scotland, especially for the west coast. Milder for the Western Isles, 7 Celsius here. Good deal of cloud, and the winds mainly light and variable. Now, into tomorrow night, high pressure starting to pull away. We'll start to see increasing amounts of cloud feeding in, and you can see the beginnings of a weather front just edging into the far northwest by the end of the night. So for Friday, you can see that high pressure has retreated, and there's that cold front working its way in from the northwest. So for Friday, lots of cloud generally across the country. There'll be a few bright spells, the best of them in the east. And we have that weather front bringing patchy rain to the Western Isles, the Northern Isles, the Northwest Highlands. Some spots of rain ahead of it, especially for southwest Scotland. And again, temperatures on the chilly side. Heading into Saturday, and we have brisk northwesterly winds, bringing a scattering of showers mainly to the northwest. Otherwise, it's bright, but it's still on the chilly side. Laura.
I'll wait till next week to ask you about White Christmases then, Gillian.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Now, tonight's main news again. Mothers and newborn babies came to harm because of staffing shortages and a toxic culture at Edinburgh's maternity triage unit. And that is Reporting Scotland. Good night.